Hello, Jakarta and the world. This is White Trash Talking. I'm Doug Johnson, and I'll be talking to you about issues relating to Jakarta, the U.S., and the world. As a U.S. citizen now living in Jakarta, I touch on issues relating to the West and the East, the United States and Indonesia, and to the world events in general, because everything is related and interconnected. Okay, so today I want to talk about an article that was written by the Jakarta Post, the editors of the newspaper, and it's called "But What About Gaza?" And this article proceeds with moral ambiguity and ends with a tepid condemnation of Israel's violence towards Palestine. In a tone that is disturbingly neutral and businesslike, the article states that Indonesia, having the world's largest Muslim population, could be a valuable asset to Israel in terms of bilateral ties. Opening diplomatic relations between the two countries, according to the Jakarta Post editors, quote, could become the benchmark for other Muslim countries on how they should deal with the Jewish state, end quote, and could also have, quote, real-world practical implications, end quote. The Jakarta Post editors, however, failed to address the obvious negative implications of supporting Israel. Furthermore, by calling Israel the Jewish rather than the Zionist state, the Jakarta Post whitewashes the racist and apartheid policies of Zionism, while ignoring that Judaism is as different from Zionism as Islam is from ISIS, the Islamic State. Indonesian citizens have always known that conducting business with Israel is unconscionable. Indonesia does not support ISIS and should not support Zionism. The article then provides a sketchy history, absent of context or details, of the business transactions between Indonesia and Israel, which led to their recent warming of ties. First, they cite Indonesia's reliance on Israel as, quote, one of its primary sources of weapons procurement, end quote, and training. The Jakarta Post editors, however, exclude important details. For example, the weapons, which include radars for artillery and surveillance, Israeli searcher drones, harmonized systems of artillery, rifles, mortars, and howitzer guns, are used primarily for internal rather than external enemies. Also not mentioned are the Israeli-made RCA riot vehicles equipped with tear gas, pepper spray, and a skunk substance for controlling protesters. The Jakarta Post editors failed to mention that weapons sold by Israel are first used against Palestinians and then advertised to the public as battle-tested, or that the only foes the Indonesian military has faced since 1965 were the political party members of PKI and the citizens of East Timor, Aceh, and Papua, which ended in massacres against unarmed and defenseless people. Next, they mention that Israeli spyware was purchased by Indonesia through a third-party country. No other details are mentioned. What they don't say is that in addition to facial recognition programs purchased from Israel, such as CoreSight, Cognite, and BriefCam, Indonesia has acquired the Israeli product Celebrite, designed to extract data and retrieve deleted data from cell phones, making it an ideal tool for corrupt officials to target protesters and political rivals. This digital forensic software, which is likely used by Israel to track Palestinians, was used by the Indonesian government to prosecute Jumhur Hidayat, who is a political activist, founder, and former chairman of the Indonesian Workers' Welfare Foundation, YKPI, and the Association of Independent Indonesian Workers Union, Gaspermindo, organizations engaged in training and empowering workers and employees. He was convicted of promoting hate speech, which no doubt means he was exercising free speech. Another jewel acquired from Israel, which the Jakarta Post editors also fail to mention, is Pegasus, a zero-click hacking device that infects smartphones to extract images, chats, phone numbers, etc. Its use by the Indonesian government is confirmed by PDIP member Muara Satki Simbolon and Democrat Party legislator Sijafudin, sorry, I got that name wrong, Sijarifuddin Hassan. According to the Times of Israel, senior Indonesian government and military officials have been targeted by Pegasus, 6 of whom were contacted by Apple, notifying them that their data was breached by state-sponsored hackers. The human rights organization Lokataru adds that, quote, it is highly possible, end quote, that the Indonesian government is keeping tabs on activists through such devices. The editors failed to question the unethical use of Indonesian money taxpayers spent to purchase these items. The final transaction leading up to the recent warming of ties is a purchase of modern agricultural technology from Israel. Shockingly, the Jakarta Post editors call Israel the, quote, go-to country for Indonesian companies looking for business solutions, end quote, and matter-of-factly mention the approval of a final draft to establish trade offices as a first step towards full diplomatic relations. The Jakarta Post editors failed to mention that Israel's solution for Prabowo's food security project was a colossal failure in terms of crop production. They also omit the fact that the secret meetings, starting in 2021, were attended by Defense Minister Prabowo, now President-elect, Israeli National Security Advisor Eyal Hulata, and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The Jakarta Post editors, without any trace of moral objection, cleverly attribute this growing partnership to the, quote, the pragmatic and transactional approach, end quote, of President Jokowi's administration. This is about money, pure and simple. By remaining neutral, the Jakarta Post editors are normalizing the free market ideology promulgated by the U.S., which has swept the world. In a nutshell, the ideology preaches that money is the sole measure of value. Money usurps all other values, whether social, environmental, or moral. This ideology of greed is leading us to social disintegration everywhere. U.S. Ambassador Dennis Ross sums it up best. Quoted in the Jerusalem Post, he equates pragmatism with opportunism, stating that should the largest Muslim country normalize relations with Israel, quote, it would reflect a broader acceptance of Israel among those who historically had rejected it, and send the signal that Arabs and non-Arab Muslims see the benefit of a relationship with Israel and are not prepared to let Palestinian opposition deny them what is in their interest, end quote. Ross states that these interests include, quote, the promise of significant private and public sector investments, end quote. In other words, do not let concern for Palestinians stand in the way of making money. While the Jakarta Post editors correctly describe the violence in Gaza as a, quote, wholesale assault and the complete annihilation of an open-air prison, end quote, they stop short of calling it what it is, genocide. They also ignore the last 75 years of Israel's brutal occupation of Palestine, the obstruction of a two-state solution that prevents Palestine's right to self-determination, the illegal annexation of land in the West Bank, the illegal expansion of settlements, and Israel's racist apartheid policy. The editors failed to see that today's genocide is actually a quickening of the long, protracted strangulation of Palestine since 1948. Instead, they describe it as a temporary period of, quote, bad behavior, which should not be rewarded, end quote. Their description evokes an image of slapping the wrist of a child, which clearly shows they do not understand the depth of the suffering in Palestine. The Jakarta Post editors then declare that such behavior should give the Indonesian government, quote, a pause for thought, and give every nation a pause to start recalibrating its ties, end quote. Their choice of the word pause suggests that the disruption to doing business with Israel should not last long. Indonesian Minister of Foreign Affairs, H.E. Retno L.P. Marsudi, speaking at the International Court of Justice, offers a better response to Israel's genocide. She states that such violations, quote, should not be normalized nor recognized, end quote. She adds that, quote, we founded our current international system with the conviction that every single human being, without exception, is protected by law, end quote. She asks, quote, should the international community continue allowing Israel to manipulate the use of international law to justify its illegal actions against the fundamental right of the Palestinians? For Indonesia, we shall not. Okay, so this is what I just wanted to say about the Jakarta Post editorial. They're very mainstream and very, supportive of the status quo. So it's not surprising what they wrote, but I just wanted to put my opinion out there. So let me know what you think, and yeah. Give me a shout, give it a like if you liked it. I'm Doug Johnson. This is White Trash Talking. See you next time.